Note, observation and people's behaviors of not understanding and being judgmental in a way that makes them not understand or be understood. Okay, so what I want to talk about in this video is the observation I've made in other people, as well as when I was younger, I used to do it myself. I haven't done this behavior in like 12 years, but I see it in everybody around me, and people need to do an internal inventory. Then they'll realize what they're doing. So, I'm going to try to give you an example so you understand the behavior I'm talking about. I'm talking about when people are looking for a chance to jump down somebody else's throat, or looking for a chance to disprove something, or when they don't want something to be true, so they try to poke holes in it. You know, that type of behavior. So, I've seen this in many people. I'll be having a conversation about, let's say, Joey or my coworker or something, and they're trying to understand the situation. Somebody will ask you a question like, what happened with Joey? Or what happened with Jess? Or what happened with Bobby? And I'll go, oh, well, he's in the hospital for so and so. You know, or you say whatever the reason is, and you're trying to have a conversation to give information and have the other person understand what's going on. I've done this myself by trying to talk to my family or trying to talk to other people and explain to them and show them, oh, why are you shaking? Why don't you look so good? What, you look like you're having trouble holding your own weight up. What's going on? Stuff like that needs a full explanation. It's a lot of talking it out. There's a lot of information to be given to understand. In my case, individually, it is wicked complicated. It is confusing as hell and hard to explain. You have to know beginning, middle, and end to understand me. You can't just jump in on the end and figure it out. But in other people, I see this all the time. Or maybe if you're talking about the homeless person you just passed, or who knows what the situation is. But I've seen this behavior in other people where you'll be trying to give them information, like maybe trying to help them understand what's going on with Joey or going on with my health or whatever. And instead of them trying to understand the conversation, people try to wait there looking for holes to poke. A lot of people, instead of looking at the situation and trying to understand what the person is trying to explain to you, like I do, I've seen many other people who literally will just wait there listening, not trying to understand it at all, trying to come up with one-liners to stop the conversation, trying to find details to poke holes in without understanding it, or without asking more questions or getting more information. They'll take a little bit of information you just gave them and then totally twist it. I mean, that's not right. I see this behavior in a lot of people. Or let's say a police officer is trying to explain something to another person. Sometimes I see people try to poke holes in what the cop is telling them. They'll try to make the cop seem like ridiculous. Like if the cop comes over and says, "You can't jaywalk over here. Don't be crossing the road where there's no crosswalk." Well, the person's gonna poke holes in that by saying, "No, everybody does it. Look, somebody's doing it right over there. Why don't you go over there and talk to them?" Well, because he's talking to you and trying to make you understand that you could get hurt by crossing the road illegally on a busy street. The officer has a law that he's enforcing or trying to give you information on this busy street that you could get hit by a car if you jaywalk. But you're poking holes blank going, oh, well, that guy's doing it right over there. I see this a lot with people. You know, or an officer comes over and, I'll have to think of another example for this. So officer comes over and he tries to explain to you something you should not be doing for a very good reason. But instead of understanding why the officer is telling you this or what's going on, you find a loophole or a flaw in it, and then they repeat it to the officer. Well, that's impossible because of this, and this. How do you? Oh, well, no, because the president does it. Or, oh, why don't you go? Oh, and then all this stuff is bullshit. People are not trying to understand the point. of conversations or trying to get the proper information to understand stuff. If they feel like it's a personal attack, if they feel like they could lose something, if they feel like something might be their fault, then they change their attitude to a poor one where they try to poke holes in what the other person is saying, and they purposely try to not understand or disvalue the information they're getting. I see this a lot in society, and it's a big problem. If somebody's giving you free information, it's best to have a discussion and understand where that person is coming from. Once when you fully understand the situation, then you can move forward. But like for instance, my health, I'll go to the doctor or I'll talk to people or even my father or my father's third wife. When I try to talk to them about my health issues, they're not looking to understand what's going on with me. They're not looking to figure out what happened to me. They're not looking to get to the bottom of it. Absolutely not. You know what my father and his third wife, when I explain about my seizures or how I took an ambulance or I give them examples of 25 years of this going on where my father was present for it, when I try to repeat what happened in the doctor's offices at age 7, 10, 12, I'm giving them examples where my father was there in the doctor's office, or, when I'm trying to have a conversation about my health, something that he doesn't know anything about. My father did not get involved in my health care at all from age 7 on. He just kind of let things go crazy. But when I tried to give him information that might help him understand what was being done to me and what was going on with me, he's not trying to understand it, and neither is his third wife. They're looking for spots to poke holes in. They're looking for a weak spot so they can smack it down. They're looking for where I might do some word association, or when I do word exchanges, like if I stutter, maybe instead of saying the word pan, I say pot. Oh, I put the pot on the stove instead of pan on the stove. Maybe they'll look for that in the conversation and say, there wasn't a pot, it was a pan, so everything's a lie. They're looking to do something like that. They're not looking to understand or get to the point or try to do anything to move society forward. No. They're looking to poke holes in it. And that happens a lot in society. I've seen many homeless people when I was in the homeless community, as well as business owners, when the police come by and they're trying to have a conversation and help that person understand why they're concerned. The other person just tries to get the cop, turn the words around. Oh, well, I'm not doing this because of this. And they're looking for an excuse. People are looking for a way to poke holes in something. They're looking a way to ridicule and try to just disvalue the information they're being given. And this happens commonly. I'm given bad information sometimes, absolutely. I get people lying to me. I get customers lying to me. I mean, I caught a person stealing, red-handed, right? And then she told me that she wasn't stealing. And then she tried to get mad at me because I caught her. This is the type of behavior I'm talking about. Not the lying. I'm talking about the fact that when they get in trouble, they don't want to take responsibility. They want to make excuses. They don't want to hear the information. And I'm not having her arrested. I'm just explaining to her that she got caught. And I saw her. That's it. But see, people, when they're in trouble, they don't want to hear the information. They want to poke holes in it. They want to find any opportunity to ridicule the information they're being given. And I think that's part of my problem with my father. His third wife wants to keep his money. She sees this as an attack on her. When I go over my medical history, it's pretty crazy what was done to me. I mean, I had drugs being poured down my throat. Ipecac was being given to me, extra doses. The key word there is extra. I had extra Ipecac being given to me. I had extra pills being given to me. I still have PTSD from it. And you know what's weird? There are times where I think drugs might have been involved, but I'm not sure, that I don't even talk to. Like, I got sick every Halloween from the age of like 7 all the way to a teenager in Chelmsford. Every Halloween, I would get sick like I was drugged on some pill or something. And every Halloween it was a little different. I swear my mother was giving me pills or some type of drug on Halloween, but I don't know that for sure. I do know for sure that there were other times where she did give me pills and I had bad reactions. And she didn't bring me to the emergency room. I had an overdose at age 7. I ended up being given a bunch of pills on my adoption, or when we were going to some court for adoption or something with a wooden pew. I was given a handful of pills, passed out, had a reaction that day. There were several times where my mother gave me a handful of pills. I had a reaction, but I was given the same handful of pills the next day, and I had no reaction. And there was also some different colored pills being added into those handfuls when these were happening. So, I know something is going on now that I'm an adult. As a child, I didn't fully understand what all this meant, but as an adult, I do. Well, that's good information to have now that I processed it. This is all very good information to pass on. It might even help my father understand things that were going on under his nose, because there's a lot of information I don't have. There's information my brother has, my sister has, my father has. They spent time with her alone as well. I can just give the information I have, then they give the information they have, and then we can come to a positive conclusion of what to do in the future. But if we can't have a conversation, then that's not going to work. But see, his third wife takes this on like an attack on her because she could lose her money, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm not trying to go after them either. It's not like that. I just wanted them to be part of the good side of this. I just told them what was going on. I explained to them that I'm trying to seek help with doctors and Social Security, and seeing as this is real and it's a problem and there's a paper trail and there's documents of some of this happening, and because of all that, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to be able to get the help I need, or I'm going to die. Now, if I get the help I need, I don't know what the state or the federal government or the doctors do about something like this, but I thought I should let them know that I'm seeking help for what was going on. And I was giving them the information that they needed to know what I'm going on about. Yeah, was made crippled. I was given a lot of drugs, extra drugs, pharmaceuticals I didn't need. My mother was up to something really bad. She was trying to make me disabled for Social Security. I'm positive of that. She actually made that very clear herself. She admitted to giving me extra Epicac. She admitted that something happened in Westford with that overdose. She called it an allergy attack, but it continued afterwards, so that's not true. Plus, she didn't bring me to the emergency room, and the way she looked and talked about it was very clear that she was trying to hide something. So that's not good. So I was being made disabled on purpose. I mean, even when a doctor was catching on to the fact I couldn't move my body properly, my mother just put me in ballet. Oh, here's a cure, ballet. So these type of behaviors were definitely problematic. Ballet is not the worst thing. The drugs and doing damage to my body, that's the part I have a big problem with, and that's the part I need medical care with. You know, I've had this since age 7 years old or so, 25 years. It's getting worse every year. I deserve proper medical treatment like everybody else. But I have a barrier in front of me. My mother and my father decided to try to get Social Security, and they made up a bunch of stories to do it, as well as my mother was doing extra stuff to try to make sure that Social Security would stick. And that extra stuff was damaging my body. And this is all true. And I have lots of information supporting this. This isn't like just an opinion, no. I have facts, I got documents. I mean, there's many, many examples of me being brought to a doctor and me, my mother, and father having a conversation about this stuff. So it's not like it's just me and my mother sitting in a room and I'm telling you about it. No. This is stuff that I brought up at the doctor while my mother was sitting there, and these are the answers she gave. These are suspicious answers about what happened that night. They're suspicious answers about a lot of stuff. Social Security was one of the last pieces of the puzzle. See, I didn't know that they were collecting disability in my name until I was 19 and it was over. It was over, and then I found out about it. It wasn't anything else. So I didn't really have time to process or figure out what was going on until after that. That was a piece of the puzzle that fit. But people don't want to hear information, especially if they could be in trouble. But you shouldn't be exhibiting those behaviors. If somebody loves you and is trying to give you information to tell you what was going on, you should take that love and be supportive. I mean, by the way, keep in mind, I have never once, like, acted vindictively towards my father or anything. When he got caught stealing my Social Security, because my DMH worker told me that's exactly what he was doing. He was supposed to turn over my Social Security at 18, and then I was supposed to turn it over to the housing or the program I was living at from age 17 to 19. He didn't, so I got thrown out of my house, my apartment, my housing, whatever you want to call it. The place that was teaching me to be an adult, that was supposed to get me my first apartment, the place that was supposed to, help me work out what to do as an adult, my father got me thrown out because he lied. He said I wasn't on no Social Security, no disability, nothing. Well, that program requires you to pay them out of your Social Security. So if I was on disability, then they need to hold the check, which I was on disability, I just didn't know it. And my father refused to tell them. He refused to give me the check. He refused to tell anybody that he was collecting this money. So I got thrown out, and then the Department of Health and Human Services worker that I had wanted me to press charges and get me that money. I came into the room, my father's there, my mother, the DMH worker. I just found out that I'm on Social Security because I was going to apply for it, and now my father goes, well, you're already on it, and it's ending. So then the DMH worker tells me, well, that's illegal. So we can press charges. We got some paperwork for you to sign. That's illegal. He's not allowed to do that. We can get you that money back. Did I go after him and get my money back? Even after everything that was done to me? Even though I'm about to lose my program because of him? When outside I realized that because I talked to somebody else who's on Social Security. AP was a great, she was a girl who was there, and she was very shy, but me and her got along. And she's told me, yeah, you can't live here on Social Security unless you turn it over. You've been here for a while now. And then it clicked in my head, oh, I'm going to get thrown out because of this. I'm not going to have a place to live, thanks to my fucking father trying not to tell people anything. But then I said, you know what? Love. I'm going to show love. I'm going to back my family. That's it. So I go back in and I tell them, no, I'm not signing. I'm not going after my father. He made a mistake. It's okay. Me and my father will make a deal where he helps me with getting back the Social Security in return for taking it, in return for getting me thrown out of my housing, and for return from lying to me and manipulating me, in return for not giving me a piece of the puzzle what maybe could have helped me get treatment sooner. I mean, I've had a physical disability for 25 years that nobody seemed to want to give a fuck about, but made up stories from my mother, a fantasy that my mother was pushing at the age of 7. Oh, no, that's fun. So, nope, I backed him. I supported my father. Of course, I wanted that. I wanted that money. Of course, I wanted my Social Security. Of course, I thought what my father did was wrong. But that doesn't mean I'm going to press charges against him. That does not mean that I'm going to try to go after him. It does not mean I want any money from him. No, I'm not like that. I don't go after people. I'm not vindictive. I don't want, if somebody does something wrong to me, I don't do anything back to them. Only thing that they have to do is understand what they did was wrong, and that's enough for me. If somebody is truly sorry and they're not going to do something again, then that's enough for me. I just don't want people to be harming other people and be doing stuff again. So this is the thing. I'm trying to open up to my father and let him know things he saw, things he was present for, things that were going on in his house, the things he was lied to about, the stories that, that I got to have a discussion about the disability, the fact that, stories were being told in front of me about me all over and over and over. But when I try to have conversations, his third wife just jumps down my throat before I get a chance, or use one-liners that stop the conversation. They want to live in a fantasy land. They want to live in my mother's fantasy land, where, by the way, keep in mind, my mother passed away in 2011 of liver failure. And right before she died of liver failure, I watched her popping pills. I watched pills disappear. I watched her drink heavily every night, even when she was in the hospital with liver failure, and she came out just for 24 hours. 5 minutes in the house, straight to the liquor cabinet. So that was hard for me to watch as well. But keep this in mind, that knowing all this, when I try to have a calm conversation with them, they're not looking to understand this. People don't do that. When something bad comes their way, they want to either go in denial, run away, they want to poke holes in it, they want to try to sink the ship. Well, no, we need to be moving forward in life. We don't need to be going backwards. And that's the problem. Everybody wants to just go backwards. They see a problem and they just run away backwards, instead of tackling the problem, understanding the problem, and moving through it forwards. That's what I do. I see a problem, I understand the problem, I figure out what needs to be done to get past the problem, and then I'm moving forward again. But see, I have a neurological disorder, I have seizures, I have numbness in the skin, touch, flashing lights, sound, and cold all trigger this nervous system issue, and it's like getting tased. And I've had this for 25 years, and I've been trying to go to the doctor since I was in Lowell. So 10 years now I've been going to different types of doctors trying to figure out what it is, and then we've been able to narrow it down to a neurological disorder and something in my nervous system, as well as we've been able to find a seizure medicine that helps with it, as well as I have a whole list of medications that help, and I have a whole list of medications that make it worse. As well as there's documentation. If I had transportation like a car, I could go to past doctors and find certain documentation that might help. Like one doctor said I had coordination issues. I couldn't move my body properly. Another doctor said I had tics, but he thought it was a side effect from the medication. I had speech problems where it took me a while to talk, and I still have problems moving my nervous system in my mouth and talking. That's still very difficult, especially when I'm getting tased from this neurological disorder. I lose the ability to talk. I also end up with lots of scars. I have scars on my face, my knees, legs, all over my body from these seizures. But that's not good. That's why I've been trying for the last 10 years to figure out what's going on. But a barrier in front of me is my mother and father had a fantasy that they were pushing to get disability in my name, and that fantasy is getting in the way of me getting proper medical care. And so they need to understand what's going on, seeing as my father's statements are the ones getting in the way and might get me killed indirectly. My father and my mother's decisions might indirectly kill me. My mother's decisions might directly kill me, because she's the one who was giving me pills, and there was weird stuff going on. Like every Halloween, I would get sick right after taking medication my mother gave me. I would get sick every Halloween, and then the next day or two I'd be better. The next day, all better. Isn't that weird that I feel sick to my stomach, I'm vomiting, I'm pale, I'm feeling awful every Halloween? That's the day of the year you want to go out and get candy. That's not a day to be sick. But every Halloween I would get deadly ill and sick. My mother was doing something. Now I have examples where I know she gave me pills and I know she did stuff. I even got her to admit to it in front of witnesses, like the Epicac. She gave me extra Epicac. She also admitted to, like, the night I overdosed, or the night she gave me pills and I had a terrible reaction and I woke up never the same, and it's still affecting me today. Whatever happened that night is still affecting me today. And my mother did not do any allergy tests. She did not look into whatever this was. She did not bring me to the emergency room. And when I brought it up at the doctor, she admitted that it happened. She admitted that I had this reaction and something happened and I lost the ability to see. I lost the ability to walk. I couldn't feel my body or my nervous system or my skin. I couldn't talk proper. And then I went unconscious and my breathing slowed down. And then when I woke up, I was never the same. Well, she admitted to that part, but then she said, oh, well, it was just a reaction from the medication. What? Well, why don't you look into these reactions or these allergies? What medications is it? She couldn't even name what medications that caused this. She was just coming up with excuses. But this was already put down on paper that she admitted this happened. But there's several where she did not admit it, like Halloween's. I would get sick on Halloween quite often, all the way until about 13. About 12, 13, when I got the chumps for it, it stopped. But for the longest time, every Halloween, I would get deadly sick. I would get very pale, vomiting, sick to my stomach, just couldn't eat, terrible, shaky, weak, and then it would go away the next day or so. Oh, well, why Halloween? What's going on Halloween? And my mother was giving me medication on Halloween. Every day of the week she was giving me medication. She was giving me handfuls of pills every single day of the week. 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 12 months a year, my mother was giving me pills. And sometimes there was extras. There was extras. That's not good. Now, this is something that probably should be discussed with my father, and this is information that he should probably understand. But that's not something that he wants. It's much easier to sit in denial. Sit in his own stink is much easier than moving forward and having a hard time. Now, what he doesn't realize is I'm so easy to talk to. I've been abused so many times. I've had so many people do awful things to me that the only thing that really will get me aggravated is if you sit in denial or make up a fantasy or assume that you know something that you don't. Like when people try to talk about my life like they were there, even though they weren't even there. Like, oh, I know exactly how Patricia acted with you, my mother. You know how me and my mother acted together? Yeah, I knew Patricia really well. No, you didn't. You didn't live with her. You didn't see her when she was drunk. You didn't see her when she was smacking people. You didn't see her when she was treating me like a dog. I mean, all the other family members, they thought it was wrong. They had to get up and say, "Stop, stop, what are you doing?" to my mother. Many people had to get up out of their seat and tell my mother, "You stop acting crazy." Did you ever have to do that? No? Then you don't know what you're talking about. See, people want to speak on something and make assumptions, especially when it's hard to hear. And I hear that a lot. I'm not even saying just to me. I don't hear that a lot from me, a lot in general. When you look at society as a whole, people do not know how to process their feelings, process their thoughts, take in information, and try to figure out how to move forward. No, they want to run away from it. A lot of them. They want to drink. They want to run away. They want to make it somebody else's problem. And that's a big problem. I mean, it is. The stuff that I had to face has made me strong. I'm spiritually strong. You could put me in prison for something I didn't do, put me with a rapist in a cell and have him rape me, and I'll still be in church trying to help some guy in that prison. I'll still be going to the masses, talking to the priest, and finding some way to make a difference in that prison. You can kick me in the ribs, break all my bones, and I'll be right back trying to end up helping another person. You can do whatever you want to me because I've spent years being systematically abused. I was given double meds at 5 years old. I was given an overdose at 7 years old. I was living in the cabin in the mountains of New Mexico by the time I was 9, 10, and I was playing with damn tarantulas and rattlesnakes and giant red anthills and wandering in the woods by myself up in the mountains in New Mexico with no supervision. I mean, after that, I'm getting abused by other kids. I'm being abused by doctors. I'm being sent to institutions where they're holding me down and giving me double dose of medications. All during this, my mother is drugging me and making me, like, I have hangovers in the morning. I'm turning pale and getting vomiting on Halloween. This is before. I just wake up in the morning after my mother gives me some pills. I feel sick. Awful. Every Halloween I got sick. Things like this went on my whole life, as well as other children obviously made fun of me. I didn't look I looked funny, and as well as later in life, I was adopted. So when I had to be living with the other orphans, keep that in mind. I got sent back to live with the other orphans, but I was the only kid who had parents. So things were fucked up there, but other kids, like beat me under a bridge. They would hit me with a board. Actually, I don't know what it was they hit me with, but when I was under the bridge, there was one time where they hit me with a board. There was another time where they just jumped me with a mask on. And, yeah, That's because they stole my iPod and then they got caught for it. I told them I forgave them for it. I told them they didn't need to pay it back either. The staff just wanted them to give me like $20 out of their funding. I'm like, that doesn't replace anything. How about giving me another iPod? No, no, no. He doesn't have to pay it back. He just needs to know that that's enough. That we found out who it is. I don't want to be part of this. Part of it is I didn't want them coming back and beating me because the staff figured out who it was. Because let's say somebody stole my belongings, and then I reported the staff, my stuff got stolen. And then 3 days later, they find the stuff in a kid's room, and he gets caught for it. Well, then the kid beats me up with a board under the under the bridge. That's where a lot of these kids used to hang out, is in homeless communities. We used to go under bridges. I mean, just about everywhere, wandering the towns. That's what it's like to grow up like an orphan. But so this has been systematic abuses my whole life. And then when I became homeless, I watched a guy get murdered. I had to save a guy from getting murdered. I had to talk with I shouldn't call them serial killers. There's people who have that feeling of wanting to kill, and they act on it over and over. They get violent. They take drugs. Then they get that urge to get violent, and they go too far, and somebody has to stop them from committing murder. These situations were common. I got robbed several times. I got beat several times to get my wallet stolen. I was even injected at shelters on accident, like people backed up and needles hit me in the back. I've had people do awful things to me, and I've had to see awful things, all the way to back to age 5. I would say the first awful thing I had to deal with is given double dose of drugs. I was given pills. They said something about some orange juice, and then I was given the second set of the same pills. That was the first ever, but it wasn't that bad. There was only like 2 pills at that time I was on. Only 2. So, they double dosed me with the same 2 pills. Not that bad. Later in life, I got double dosed with like 7. And this was at like about 14, so it was way more traumatic. At age 14, I was held down and given my meds twice, all because of my roommate in a candy cane. And that's not that bad either. Compared to an overdose that my mother gave me, both of those aren't that bad. My mother gave me a handful of medication, and then I totally just got permanently crippled. On Halloween's, I got sick. When we were supposed to go to an adoption, she gave me some meds before we got in the car. I pass out in the car. Then when I get in court, I can't stay awake as much as I want to. I'm so lethargic, I can't quite stay awake. My breathing is slowing down. But she wakes me up afterwards and says, well, it's done. I'm like, what's done? I'm totally out. Then she tries to drag me into the car, and then we go to some party. Everybody thinks I'm so lethargic, and I just want to sleep on the floor. I just want to curl up on the floor and sleep. And everybody keeps on coming up at this party saying, what, are you depressed? Why do you look all upset? Why do you look all upset? So this stuff went on my whole life. So I've been systematically abused. And that's why I'm very good at taking abuse, or taking people's verbal abuse, or taking people's aggression out on me. People are very good at doing that, and I'm very good at taking it. And that's why I don't understand why my father and his third wife don't just have a discussion with me. I know you guys are going to get hurtful. You guys always do that. You've been hurtful several times in the last 2 years. I mean, it's just very common. I'm used to you guys being hurtful. But you need to understand what's going on. And they don't want to. Nope. They're running away. They're running away from their problems, or they're going to try to twist this into something else. They'll probably double down on the barrier. What's preventing me from getting proper health care is this mental disability case that they use for Social Security. They just made up 20 different problems with me. My mother pushed these problems at doctors. She would give me drugs that would make me tired or depressed, or they would make me lethargic and make me go down, because they're downers. Downer pills would make me go down. Then they would wear off, and I'm always hyper. I was born ADHD hyper. I was hyperactive and talkative. That was my only birth problem. That's the only thing I was born with. But after my mother was done with me, I got PTSD, anxiety. I got head injuries, multiple of them now. I have a lot of problems now after everything that's gone on. But it's not bipolar, that's for sure, because I'm always up. I don't go down. But anyways, when you give me downer drugs, though, I go down. The drugs wear off. I go back up. You give me more downer drugs, I go back down. then I go back up after they wear off. Then you give me more downer drugs, I go down, and then they wear off, I go back up. And when you see this and you don't fully explain it to a doctor, like for instance, my mother would use this, oh, he's down, then up, then down, then up, then down, then up, without giving the doctor context. The doctor's going to think that's bipolar, because bipolar is when you're down, up, down, up, down, up. But see, you got to give the doctor context. If you told him when I give downer medications to my son, he goes down, and then when the medications wear off, like a couple hours later, he's back up, and then I give him more downers, he goes back down. If you explain that part to the doctor, I'm sure he would understand, well, let's try it without the medication. But see, I had a lot of false reporting. My mother used to like to take things out of context. Like there was another one she tried to get me to go along with, but I wouldn't have it. She was trying to get me to repeat I was schizophrenic. And the way she was trying to brainwash me into thinking it is I play with my action figures and I make them talk to each other. I go, pew, 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 yeah, I know you didn't get me, oh, I'm running over here. Or, hey, Bobby, we gotta go get that place. We gotta go get and save Joey over there. I'm playing with action figures, giving them a storyline. Well, she wanted me to say, well, you're hearing voices, you're making them talk to each other. So the action figures have voices. So yeah, you do hear voices, Zach, and you need to tell the doctor that you hear voices because you're playing with action figures. Or she was going with that as an example to try to get me to say, I'm schizophrenic and I hear voices to the doctor. Those were the words she wanted me to say. I'm schizophrenic and I hear voices. But that would be a big fat lie because the truth is I do not hear any voice but my own. I am not schizophrenic at all. I am not schizophrenic at all. So why does my mother come in there and try to push this action figure schizophrenic type thing? As well as she said multiple times, I think you're schizophrenic. I think you should tell them. And she used to come up with these fantasies and these stories, and I never could understand why she would want me to go along with all this crap. But at 19, I understood what was going on. At 12 and 13 and 14 and all those other ages, disability. That's why she wanted me to say I was schizophrenic. That's why she was reporting the downs of the medication as bipolar. I'm ADHD, I'm hyper. But if you give me downers, I'll go down. And then it wears off, I'll go back up. And then you give me more downers, I'll go down. And then as it wears off, I'll go up. But if you take that and give it to a doctor without giving him proper context, you can get a diagnosis of bipolar. And she knew this. So she was getting drugs into my body and then trying to get diagnoses by not giving context or the proper information. She was giving bad information to the doctor so that way she could get the diagnoses she wanted. She used to argue with the doctors a lot that she knew everything, that she knew exactly what I needed and to just write it up. She would tell the doctors, this is what you're writing, this is what I need from you, you do it. It wasn't like she was waiting to hear what the doctors had to say. My mother had a pre-notion of what she wanted before she even brought me there. She wanted schizophrenia on the paperwork. So she had to convince me that I was schizophrenic, but it didn't work because I was living with schizophrenics. I knew exactly what a schizophrenic is. They hear voices that talk to them. I don't have that. I have no voices talking to me, so that I can't have that. Very simple, cut and dry. But my mother wanted to push a narrative, and I could not understand what was going on at 14. But now at 31, I fully understand. And at 19, the piece of the puzzle, disability, sure added quite a bit that made all this really fit. So now that I understand what was going on, now that I understand what was going on with me, now I understand what was done to me, now I understand that this is a neurological disorder and seizures. I know what was going on at age 7, 10. I know what all these things are. I've spent 25 years investigating this. I thought that maybe I should pass on the information with my father, seeing as he was duped too. I truly believe that he didn't quite get involved in my health care, so he didn't quite know what was going on. He knew that my mother was acting crazy, but he didn't know the full extent of her crazy behaviors. And he also was totally told that I was just crazy all the time. Even though if he used his own mind to evaluate the situation, and if he brought me to the doctors himself and actually gave the doctors real information based off of facts, he might have came to a different conclusion. But no, this disability case is what came first. My health came second. The disability case came first. And now I cannot get proper medical care for my physical health. Now I got a permanent barrier put in front of me, and it's going to be 10 years of hard work to be able to get proper medical care. And I'm going to have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars before I can maybe live a normal life. But when we have the neurological disorder and the seizures taken care of and the movements of my body taken care of, we have a diagnosis on paper that matches the information that I'm giving. Then we have a treatment that seems to actually work and seems to show improvement. Then I can move on. And that's all I want. I don't want any money. I don't want anybody to pay. I'm not vindictive. I do want people to understand the truth. Oh, yeah. I really do want people to know the truth, especially after being lied about for 15 years. I mean, I watched my mother lie about me right in front of me. It was hurtful. Some of the awful things she said were awful. I mean, I got hundreds of them, but you probably heard on my other recordings about how I won a medal, a swimming medal in the orphanage, and I tried to show it to my mother, and she stole it from me, told me that I stole it from an African American kid, and then told me there's no way it could be mine, it must be an African American kid, and then walked away with it. That is not good behavior from a mother. Not at all. She's making up her own stories in her head based off assumptions. She probably figured, well, we didn't bring him to any swimming classes, so it can't be, and then she just took it. This was very common behavior. They would make a little assumption. They would make some type of assumption, and then they would come up with a whole story in their brain to go with it. That's called a fantasy. When you make an assumption and then you come up with a fantasy in your head to go with that assumption, that's a fantasy. And that's what my mother and father were feeding into. My mother had a fantasy. She had a narrative to push. She wanted disability, and she had a plan that she made up to try to make sure that this happened. And she did not care about giving me pills to shut me up. And I know that something was going on at Halloween. I'm not quite sure about what that one was, because I just got very sick, like to my stomach, vomiting, pale every Halloween. And then I couldn't go out with my friends. I couldn't go out trick-or-treating because I was sick vomiting. Every Halloween. It wasn't just one Halloween. There was a bunch of them in a row. And I was fine the day before Halloween. I'm fine the day after Halloween. But every Halloween I would get sick. I don't know what the fuck my mother was doing to me. I do know some of what she was doing to me, and that's what scares me. And I wish people would listen, because this is traumatic stuff that really is important to understand. But of course, like I said, it's easier to sit in denial and run away. And people do that a lot. They don't want to face what they have to face. They want to poke holes in it, run away, go into denial, get drunk, whatever it takes not to deal with it. Some people even might go on a vacation or try to run to another state and just live on the beach or go off the grid. There's a lot of people doing stuff like that too. Meanwhile, I want to stay in my apartment, but I keep on ending up in the emergency room. Like on September 11th, I'll be in the emergency room from September 11th to September 16th. That's because of the seizure disorder. They're doing some testing, so I'll be gone from those dates. I'll probably do some videos while I'm in there.